Hello, hello, and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni, and I'll be your host for today. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for liking and subscribing. We've been getting some really nice comments, so thank you for all of those. They make me really, really happy. And so today I'm pretty excited because we're going to be going back to basics. So we did this episode quite a while ago, but it was lost. It was somehow deleted or not recorded. So we're going to go back to basics with what is human design for our first section. And then for our second segment, we're going to be doing our introduction to circuitry and human design and giving you a nice overview of the different circuits. And so for both of those, I'm going to bring out my wonderful co-host, Danny, for some human design explorations.
Oh, I can't wait. So I didn't realize until maybe a month ago, I guess when we had announced it, that we had lost that first episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad we're touching on it again. So there can be one little segment. What is human design?
Yeah, exactly. Moana told me you guys did it and you had a fun time, but then like there's nothing for it to be seen of it. And then I think it's a really good thing. Yeah, let's go over like, hey, what are the basics of this system and explain that to our audience.
Absolutely. You know, as this stuff starts to catch on, everyone's going to want their design read when they see that the science of it rather than the esoteric nature of it. It's incredible. So especially when we start talking about people's as kids, my God, what's up with my Johnny? You know,
Yeah. How did you know that about
or my
them?
husband or my husband.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway.
I find it really I really like because it is a science. You're experimenting with it, you're playing with it. Like if you want to, if you don't, like, you know, it's up to you. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. When I do readings for people, it's like, hey, I don't want to tell you, you know, what to do or what to expect or listen to me or, you know, anything like that. It's just here are specific patterns based on looking at this chart. Here are patterns in your life, and here's how you can play with them. And see what happens for yourself. And that's what I love about human design, because it is a see what happens for yourself, mess around, you know, F around and find out. And by experimenting with it it's the fun of it. It gets juicy and you start seeing, oh, this feels better when I follow my strategy and authority, or I didn't follow my strategy and authority and I fell on my face.
And it doesn't feel as good. Or just even the moments where, oh my God, I see it. And then they start to recognize it. They start to recognize where that thing that is supposed to be what they're doing shows up, and they can see it. You know, it's great.
Perfect. So here we go.
What is it?
What is it? What is this thing? What is this thing that we've been talking about for the past year? So what is human design? So here as your basic intro, the founder of the human design system is Robert Allen Krakauer. He went by Ra, as Robert Allen was like a nickname. And Uruhu was a name given to him as the closing of the door. Basically, Ra comes in at the end of this like hyperlogical process to give us this hyperlogical system that we can play with, that actually takes us from this very logical, and then by playing with the hyperlogical and hyperrationality of human design, it opens us up to the natural, more fluid way of being, which human design allows. And in 1987 is when he began his journey with human design.
Yeah, well, he washed up on a shore somewhere in Ibiza, basically, after having a really turbulent life. And he was a manifester, unemotional. And I remember him telling a story over and over again. He was mad. He was just manifester mad after, what was it, his third divorce. And he left. He checked out. And then he checked back in 1987. So lucky us.
Lucky us. So human design is a synthesis of existing systems, right? So it is a synthesis of the Chinese I Ching, the zodiac astrology, and the Hindu chakra systems, and the Kabbalah tree of life. And you can see all these different aspects within like human design and the mandala.
Yes, and understanding your own uniqueness in this print. You know, at some point in time, we're going to have to add the fifth thing. I've always talked about it, how science is like the fifth magic to show up, or the fifth, system to show up. But this would just be and our genetic code, because that's where a lot of this came from. But
yeah, we have a future episode on that where you can actually go into the I Ching with human design and get into the genetic code and the amino acids and stuff. So it's great because it's like I feel like the basis of human design. You have the I Ching, the zodiac placements, the chakras into the centers, the Kabbalah, but it also then touches into like biology and psychology and how we interact and how our bodies work. And it's really quite fascinating. It's this very, I mean, it's the science of human differentiation. It's why are
Yep.
you and why am I me and why are we different?
And it ends up being what's so cool about this, because it's all the biology. And so it's the biology. And then when we come to the psychology of what's going on in our minds, it becomes the biology of that psychology. It's not just the sit on a couch psychology part, try to analyze the words and the so forth. It's looking into the body graph and seeing what the biology is actually doing for you. And then suddenly you start to realize why the psychology in your life is this way,
Yeah,
and it's so amazing that way.
Yeah, it shows these patterns and correlations, right? So it's like this part of the body graph correlates to this expression energetically or physiologically. And it's really neat as you get into the depth of it. It's really quite beautiful. And like the more I learn about human design, the more beautiful the body graph is, the more beautiful the mandala is, and just like how intricately and beautifully all of this has been created and interwoven, and really just it really brings you to like a divine place, like to know that like everything is so precisely created. It's like this isn't an accident. Like we are created, we are programmed. This is so organized and so beautiful. It really opens your heart into there's something bigger than us that has made us, and there's a journey and a purpose here. And I don't know, like I get really emotional. Maybe it's like I'm a vessel of love,
Well,
but I
you
get very
should.
lovey about it.
I did too when I started to realize all of the big four ancient knowledges, that they were all onto something. And I remember there was a time in my life, probably when I was in college at some point, excuse me, that I wasn't sure about certain esoteric things, and astrology was just a fanciful thing that sometimes you read a horoscope about. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's not knowledge. That's sort of the opposite in a way.
Yeah, it's parlor tricks. It's a little like it's a cute
Two,
fortune cookie. It's
well, until we realized they were actually onto something. And that's why when someone gets an astrology reading for real, they
oh yeah,
always notice 100% of the time that that there's something about it, because some of that stuff is me, they'll say. And
there's
then,
patterns.
yeah, it's patterns. That's it. And same thing with the I Ching, people trying to make sense of the I Ching, and scholars looking at the I Ching for thousands of years. It's been around, and then human design comes along and puts the rest of the English on that fastball, and it's literally sends it in for a landing. It sends it right in for a landing. So suddenly the I Ching actually makes more sense, rather than just what are your master? What ways am I? You know what I mean? Now it's like you're these ways, and the
Yeah,
master of the I Ching days couldn't do that the same way.
it's
Yep.
very much like a compass.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a compass. Like I'm replaying Zelda like on Nintendo right now, and I've been loving it. And there's a point where you go in the dungeon, and at first, like you have nothing but what you walked in with, and you have to like first find the map, and then you find the compass, and then you get to like see the map and like where the treasure is and all the things. And I really feel like the I Ching and astrology and the chakra systems, the Kabbalah, all of this. It's like you had like the aspects of like these things are all here, but never the twain shall meet. Like they didn't have a connection point. And with
Right.
human design, it's like you can understand, oh, this connects here and this connects here. And it's like this beautiful, intricate
Directly.
clockwork. Yeah,
Yes, a direct connection with all the beautiful gears of a clock that makes so much sense at the end of the day. It all ties together and makes it become finally sensible.
exactly. So,
Mhm.
and ultimately, it is human design is your individual energetic blueprint in understanding your own uniqueness. Like, this is why you are you. This is the blueprint to your sim. Like these are your character stats. And
And
it's
the only hard thing I've ever found to really get past is to the recognition at the very beginning that at the moment of birth, at the moment of separation from our mother, um, we're imprinted. It's an imprinting, and it's just not that hard to see when you start to see it at the level of human design itself. You know what I mean? You start to see it in the being. It's it is an imprinting, and you're like, oh my god, so I've been minted like a coin. That's why people have always said, oh, he's just that way. And then we
mhm,
look at their body graph, it's like, yep, they're that way. The imprinting got given to us. I mean, it just was part of our part of what happens as we're born. It's not
mhm.
even that big of a surprise, since the genome does so much other stuff. One of the things it does is pick up its imprinting. It's just not even that big of a surprise. But last thing I would say about it is human design system and the science of our differentiation is now measurable. And what we do is we can see what's going on underneath at this genetic level as it relates to behavior, not as it relates to are you blonde hair or blue eyed or any of that. None of those physical characteristics, just sort of behavior as a simple keynote. And it reads it so we can see how that behavior is bubbling up to the surface to be the life we live. And once you start to see it, you can't miss it.
Perfect. I love that, Danny.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So next up, we have what human design is and what it is not, right? Because there's a lot of misconceptions of like, what is this, right? So human design, what it is, it's your unique energetic blueprint. What it is not is predictive. It's not here to be fortune telling. It's not here to be a divination tool or tell you what you're doing next Tuesday, right? It's just to show you, here is your blueprint. Here's your user manual.
Yeah, and so don't ever really look to the body graph for what's going to happen to me next and or what should I do. There are other esoteric things that might help with that, you know what I'm saying? And everyone's on their own journey with that. But with this one, we can all have the same language is the thing. And every practitioner can talk the same way and we can get to what's going on with you. So then you can start to answer your own predictive models.
Oh, well said.
Yep.
So next up, we have human design. What it is, it's a touch point aligning you to your true nature. And what it is not is authoritarian, right? We're not here to tell you what to do. Like, I don't want that responsibility. Like, I've learned it. I'm not here to order people around. I'm here to just put my own self in order. So it's not here to tell you what to do or put you into like a box or any like strict rules. It's just a way to be like, to touch you back to like, oh, wait, this is who I am. Oh, this is who I am. Oh, I see how that expresses. And it just kind of gives you that touch point to play with in your experiment if you choose to. And if you don't, like, go do whatever else you want to do in life and like, good luck.
And the beautiful thing about it is these touch points, there's many touch points in a body graph, but it's finite. And the big ones are the ones that are the most important. If you really, when you really look at the system, you start to realize, wow, if I can just get to understand at least the first 3 or 4 things, I'm going to go a long way, and then I'll come back in for another, reading or analysis or something of that nature. Yep.
Absolutely. Next up, human design. It is a means of understanding yourself and others. What it is not is heady rote memorization. Sure, like there's those of us who are like the super nerds and it gets us excited to learn this in depth and like totally take it apart. But for most people, it's just, I mean, if you take like one thing, like I really try to break that down with people in the readings. If you forget everything else I tell you, remember this one thing. And I give them those main things about their strategy, their authority, right? So it's a way of understanding yourself and having compassion for yourself. You know, before human design, like I was quite the mess. And as I started to learn my design and it just allowed me to have this compassion for myself, right? Of like, why am I not like, other people? Why am I not like the generators who are doing and building? Like, why can't I keep up as a, now I know, projector? And it allowed this like well of compassion for myself of like, oh, I'm not supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be like them. I'm supposed to be like me. And then it broadened out to having a compassion of like, well, why isn't that person the way I want them to be? And like, oh,
right.
Because they're here to be who they are and they're just wired that way. And they're not here to be what I want them to be. And it allows this kind of like, just, oh, this grace, this compassion, this dropping of the at yourself or at other people. Yeah. And like, oh, it's just a way to understand yourself and other people.
Ross said the coolest thing, and he said that the people helping him publish the very first book, mostly his friends who he had read for and were already awake, but that there was a discussion about the original subtitle, and they didn't want him to call it the Human Design System, right? But he said, nope, it's a Human Design System. This is like any other, the systems of hydraulics, the hydraulic systems. It's no different. This is why we did it that way. But then he wanted to name it a no-fault guide for living, because human design keeps showing us how, when you really look at it, you look at the other guy, you start to find out it's not my fault. It's not their fault. They can't help it. They're not self is taking them away, or my not self took me away, or it's not my fault that something's going this way or that I am this way. It's how I'm made. So you start to find out the things that you are in your body graph are the things you feel most relieved when you finally accept it, because you already know you're that way. So as soon as you line to the things that are already there, resistance goes way down, right across the board.
And it gives you something to do with it. Because so much of the time, like fault and blame. Like we blame ourselves for things because things just don't make sense. And so I'm just going to blame myself for it, and we can go down that loop. Whereas, yeah, with human design, it's like, oh, the reason we got in that fight is, you didn't listen to your sacral response and went down a wild ride and it got weird. And then I got weird and then we both got weird and exploded. It's not a blame or a fault thing. It's just like, oh, that's what happened. It's like this mechanical situation. But what's cool though, is then it gives you this opportunity to do something with it. Oh, we don't have to get in these stupid arguments as a couple. We can just understand the energy got weird, take a minute to separate and come back to it. So it's even beyond this like no fault, no blame. It's like, oh, I don't have to blame me or this other person, but I can totally do better. And by giving you an opportunity to do better, it's so much more rewarding than just blaming yourself or another person for it being bad. You can just grow beyond that.
Up to and including all those things that we think actually annoy us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when people are awake to their nature, if something's sort of bothering them, what happens is the partner, the other, starts to recognize, oh yeah, I guess that is. And then they either back off or they do it someplace else or something sort of changes with that, and vice versa. Stop taking it personally. As Rob would always say, please, folks, please, it's not personal. If someone is who they are, that can never be considered personal. Just like we all know, I'm sad, they made me sad. It's like, well, that's my sad. It's not there that I made me sad. You know what I'm saying? That's the real truth, or whatever the thing is. It wasn't them, even if they're there for it all and so forth.
Yeah. Perfect. So next up, human design is a tool in reclaiming your inner authority. And what it is not is disempowering, overwhelming, or inaccessible, or doesn't need to be. If you're overwhelmed by something, step away and like come back to something simpler or whatnot. But the base of it and the purpose of it is just as it's this compass. It's a tool. It's something that you can use to reclaim yourself and understand yourself. And like, why does my body freak out in this situation? And why does it feel good here? And how do I understand that so I could move through the world with ease?
Exactly. And that whole inaccessible thing is, we turn that right around. The overwhelmed part, some people do feel a little overwhelmed because we read for them. That's normal.
There's a lot going
But
on
it
in human design.
empowers, it only empowers.
Yeah.
This is what I see. This truly empowers. And this beautiful inner authority of ours, the simplest way to see part of what your inner authority is going to tell you, never mind exactly how it works. We have to go into that in specifics, which we can't do here. But what it's going to tell you, no matter your type, no matter the inner authority, no matter the definition, it's going to tell you essentially what the 4 and 5-year-old version of yourself would have told you in their innocence before they were fully conditioned. The kid that just is themselves. And that's what it's going to tell you, leading to the axiom I'm always saying, the kid is always right. The kid is always right. So
absolutely. It's really fun that you say that story, because it was literally one of the things my mom told me as I started going through like several years of my human design journey and just like healing a lot of stuff. And she's like, oh, you're becoming more like you were when you were a little girl. And I was like,
she said that?
She totally
Was it
said
a
that to me.
spontaneous remark?
It was totally spontaneous.
Oh.
I mean, probably talking about and just doing better and healing and whatever. But yeah, it came from her completely on her own that, yeah, you're becoming more like you were when you're a little girl. And I was sweet and soft and open before I was like, danger, protection, self-defense mechanisms. Yeah.
My goodness, that's a profound thing. I bet that hit you pretty hard in that very moment when I bet you was like,
does.
Wow, Mom, you might not realize, but what you said was pretty big.
Yeah, but manifestors like, huh, what?
What? I'm done already. Bye. Right.
So next up, human design is a science to be tested. And what it is not is it's not a belief system. It's not a morality system. It's not a religion or a cult. It's not here to tell you what to do. No, there's no human design police that are going to come like barging down and knocking your door. And there is no morality to it. It's very mechanical. It's like Ross said, he's like, I'm a plumber. It's just like, this goes where this connects to here. This is how this works. And if someone's trying to preach to you or make it weird, like, just walk away and like find somewhere else to learn human design. But yeah, it is a science to be tested. And the more you learn, it's kind of like these endless experiments that you can play if you want. Like, I really love them. For a basic person, you can play like 1 or 2 experiments and like have these 2 little games you play with your strategy and authority. But for anyone, it's like there's just this endless supply of noticing the energy, and it's like seeing the tendrils in the matrix. It's like seeing the weave in a fabric, and you can see these threads and how they connect. Like, I get all excited. It's like a game for me.
Absolutely. And a lot of people will want to dive right in because it is thrilling when you start to see, oh my God, we have this tech now. We actually know this. And the whole belief system is definitely not, or a morality system, or all of these things on the right of the thing that it is not, have centralized power grids of people. There's folks in charge and there's rules that you get shunned for if you don't know. Human design has none of that.
It's
It's
the
one at
opposite.
a It's literally the opposite. And because it's the science of differentiation. When they say to be tested, it's don't believe me, folks. Don't believe me, folks. You can see it for yourself. You just have to be open and willing enough at least once or twice to physically try and see your strategy, authority, and type by literally following the program that we lay out for you when we read and teach and show you.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. You'll see it for yourself. It's empirical. And one person at a time, bringing the empirical knowledge forward, finally creates the very same thing we got long ago when we're like, apparently the sun goes around, apparently the earth probably goes around the sun. That was a big day when that, and they figured that out way back then, and people probably hung for that. But regardless, the science was being tested, and it showed that it's more likely we're revolving around it than it around us.
Yeah, you start seeing enough things that you can play with
empirically, and then your cohort see it, and then his partner saw it, and then the other folks saw it. And so you see it.
Yeah. And there it is interesting because, like, I know there is concern of like, oh, this is related to astrology. Oh, there's this, or like Hindu stuff, or is it New Age or anything like this? And I totally understand that, like I am a Christian, like, I follow Jesus, like number one. And I've even wondered, I'm like, am I doing something weird? Am I doing something bad? Am I looking into something that's in a way dangerous? And I really like have gone through that to kind of process through. And it's just like, it's using the zodiac astrology as like patterns and placements. It's not deifying, it's not ritualizing, it's not idolizing this above the creator, and the same thing, the I Ching, it's like, oh, these are patterns, the chakra system, this is how energy is moving through our body. So in these ways, I know there can be some concern there, and like to each their own, like whatever people want to engage with. But I've honestly found that this has brought me closer to God, because now I'm like, I can see the beauty of the design. I can see that there is a creator of some kind that loves us dearly to create something so intricate and so profoundly beautiful. And it's not an idolization, it's not a deifying or a worshiping of this. And Ra was very
in fact, it doesn't
anti-new
even
age.
fit.
No, it's just a very
mechanical.
it's a very mechanical thing. It's I look at it the way a cardiologist would look at the circulatory system, where it's just like, cool, the heart goes to this and this vein goes here and this artery goes here, to understand in that way. So I also just wanted to like address that, because I know there's sometimes some concern there, and do what's right for you. But that's how I've found my way through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And finally, we have human design is an experiment to enjoy. And what it is not is the end all be all. It's something to play with. It's something to engage with as it excites you. But, there's more out there, and it's not anything, you don't need to again, don't idolize this. Don't worship this. Don't deify it. That's not the purpose of it. It is a tool. It is a compass and a map that you can experiment and play and enjoy.
I would argue you should. I would argue that by now or soon, as the system literally is catching on, because it's catching on like wildfire, one day there'll be a little picture of the chart on everyone's driver's license, and in your doctor's chart or whatever at school for the kid. It's a little, right on your badge, so we can know who we're talking to, because it'll just be so commonplace, not idolized, just commonplace. In my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I've often like dreamed of like, oh, how cool it would be to be able to like set up schools in line with human design in a simple way of like, oh, the non-sacrals, like you get a couple nap times. You get a couple times where you can just like go chill in your own energy, and like the generators, the manifesting generators have like extra PE, stuff like that. I've just thought like, oh, that'll be really fun. Like once we kind of get to that way to just optimize for everyone.
Right.
All right.
Exactly. It's so good. Moving on.
Moving on. So finally, I believe this is our last slide. We have just a glossary of terms to kind of go over because, diving into human design initially, it's like, what is this? It can look really complex. There's numbers and lines and all sorts of interesting words. So we're going to do a simple glossary breakdown for you. So first up, we have strategy. And so strategy is the technique to best navigate according to your type. We're not going to go into the details of each person's strategy and their types. We have other videos and we'll go into that, and we have. But just for the glossary, the strategy is like, here's what you do to navigate according to your type, whether it's manifestor, generator, man-gen, reflector, or projector.
Strategy to me has always been a way of describing to a person how they can key in on an experimental basis so that they themselves can witness what the chemistry is doing that brings them to their own inner truth. So it's like it's your interface. And the thing is, it's a little clumsy at first. So it's not like an interface like, oh, let me get the app. Oh, look, it works so good. It's a little clumsy at first, right? And this these techniques that navigate it help us get to the thing that strategy is really. Strategy is the product of type. There's four main types: the generator, the projector, the manifestor, the reflector. They all have a different strategy. And as we get you into that, you start to see it for yourself. And when we start to layer on the rest of what we'll go through in the glossary, bam, you'll never go back is the thing. No one goes back once they see. I've never seen it.
Yeah, once you have those, like initially it's like, what is this? This is a lot. Is this another thing? Do I need another thing? But as like the couple things start clicking and there's like a moment where something is just so specifically spot on that there is this body knowing, there's this recognition, you're like, that's too precise. That's too precise. It's too tangible and so ready that, it tends to pique curiosity.
That's the seeing it. And as soon as you see it, you can't unsee what you saw is the thing. You start to realize this is a scientific system. It's a little clumsy at first. If I don't know what I'm doing, I need some help I need it to be read. But if someone reads it for me and I do it, suddenly I can follow this for the rest of my life. Oh my God, I want to see what my children are. I want to see what my husband is. I want to see what all of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So next up, we have authority, right? So you always hear strategy and authority, follow your strategy and authority. So we went over strategy. Authority is your body's guidance system for correct decision making. So again, this is going to be specific to you and which centers are lit up for you, but it's your body's knowing. Was it anthro-ontological? It's body knowing. Because you'll have it different. Everyone will have a different thing. Some people it's like follow your gut, and some people are like sleep on it, right? But you know that when you jumped into something, you're like, oh, why did I agree to that? Oh, now I'm in it, And you've had the things where you're like super into something and it was correct, and you did it, and everything was just like perfect, like a dance. So this is the way that we can tune into it, is by learning what is our specific authority in decision making. And again, like Danny said, it's a little clumsy at first. It's a little weird. It's like learning a new dance, like you're not going to tango great the first time. You're probably going to step on your feet and trip and look a little goofy. But if you play around with it, you start learning the steps, you start learning to see it and play with it, it becomes really fun.
It really does. And these things do go together, strategy and authority. I mean, they just are. And they're wildly different, these authorities. They're wildly different. So you gotta land it in so you see what they are. But without going through all the different authority types, they have you waiting, like Moni said, they have you knowing right away. They have you having to speak to hear your truth. They have you noticing that the stuff you say seems to also clarify what you mean at the same time. This is one of the strategies, they all of this stuff. So I find it amazing. And have you simply responding. It's like, what do you mean respond? It's like that first response is right. That's what the kid would say. And we teach people to see the difference between that and their mind starting to think stuff. You know what I mean? And then they start to get it. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So next up, we have aura, right? So again, there's another one of those words like aura, your vibe, you're this, you're that. So your aura is the electrical system around your physical body, and it extends about 6 feet in either direction. So if you imagine like almost like a big donut around your body, like a big old donut, and 6 feet out in all directions, there is this electrical system that's feeling into stuff. It's like, you get as close to somebody you really love, and like your heart like starts to like flutter, right? You got a crush on somebody, or there's somebody that you're walking down the street and like you get a little too close to somebody and it feels real weird and you know you got to go, right? That it's those tendrils that are feeling into the world and sensing, right? It's almost like your antenna system that's like sensing what's going on you and other people around you.
Indeed, indeed. And this whole aura thing it's magnetic and it acts like a Wi-Fi. And it is what it's transmitting, amongst other things, is the particulars of your body graph. It's transmitting that into the other. That's how we notice things about people in the first place. It's not just visual and sight, although that and sound and all that has much to do with it. But the aura is already communicating is the thing. And so if we take ourselves and as we walk through life and we're in the aura of things, this is half the experience. And the thing is, we know that intuitively. But now we start to see the mechanics that the aura transmits our design into the other, and it transmits and allows and accepts the design of the other into us. Even on the other two more difficult auras where it's harder to break through, it's still happening. It's not happening. That's
There's
totally
still
that's
an
how we
interaction.
exchange. Totally. And sooner or later they let them in anyway. So it's always happening. Moni and I were just talking about a distinction we're not going to go into now, but it's between the 4 aura types. The aura type is like the skin and the shell around the whole thing. The aura is basically what makes the type. Because if it's open and enveloping like a generator, now that's a generator and it can't help. It can never be anything else is the thing. So the aura makes the type. The aura is measurable. You put a yardstick out there and you get some measurement tools. You'll see, oh, there's a electromagnetic field around this person. Oh, there is information in here. Don't know how to read it, but there's information in here. Oh, look, it's constant. They'll see all kinds. Oh, look, it has a charge of blah, blah, blah milliamps over such ohms. It's all there. It's working in the physical world just like everything else. And it's no wonder God chose to make such a perfect system, or however that worked out, because it shows this force inside of us that we get to know who we are. And you get to see it was some kind of intelligent design. Seems that way. It's really put together, and even if it's not intelligent design, it's just sort of evolutionary, then even just the turn around the wheel starts to show how we evolve. So it all fits. And it does not discount anything one believes about how we got here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a specific episode on like what is aura. I'm really excited about it. The presentation is really, really cute. So that one's coming up in the next, few weeks or whatnot. So stay tuned. The last thing I was going to say about aura also is if you're ever like feeling weird, or maybe you and your boyfriend, girlfriend, like you're getting weird and it's a fight and you're just like, separate. Just separate your auras, like go 15, 20 feet apart if you can. Go take a walk and come back and let them know I'll be back in 10 minutes or whatever. But if you can separate auras for like 10, 15 minutes when things are getting a little hairy, relationship saver right here, 100%, right? Because sometimes it's like we're just taking in so much from our aura, the other person's aura, and the electricity is all jagged and weird. Just be like, babe, I love you. Let's separate and come back in 15 minutes. And you will immediately separate, go into separate spaces, and you'll feel that energy drop. And you'll just have that like moment where you're like, okay, oh, this was me. This was not me. This was his stuff. This was my stuff. And it all just kind of settles back down. And you're no longer in that freak out, flight or fight stage, or like it can start like winding down. And then you can come back and be like, oh, I'm sorry, you were having a hard day, or this is going on. But yeah, if you're ever having a weird time, try to separate aura and just go stand 15, 20 feet away for a little bit and regroup into yourself alone if possible.
Absolutely. And the thing is, if people are awake to their design or starting to see it's there, you'll also be able to recognize that as soon as you breach and you're about 8 or 9 feet away fully, it'll really hit you. I have left the aura of that other person. There is a physical grip of me onto them and them onto me of some sort. You don't even have to name it. You just recognize it's there, and you recognize it breaks at a certain distance. And you start to realize, well, that is a very mechanical thing, even though everyone knows that intuitively, get away from them, break that aura. It's just that when you've got the mechanic for it, it makes you more logical when you come back.
Absolutely.
And hopefully anyways. So
next up, we have conditioning. Conditioning it's external influences from family, from people around you, and even the planetary transits, right? It's the other data that is coming through. So you can look at your human design chart and you're like, cool, this is my consistent energy. And you can have this sense of like what is lit up. And then in all the white spaces on your chart, that's where other people and the planets can light you up. That's where you can temporarily, short term, feel that energy. And if we get lost in it, or we think that other people's energy is our own, it gets a little squirrely.
Absolutely. And the whole thing about we're moving on to conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as the conditioning starts to hit, it ends up being most profoundly in the open centers. And that's a nice, easy clue, because ultimately anyone can see that the open, all white centers that don't have a channel going to it, they can see them. And when we start keynoting what those things are doing to you and how they're taking you away from your nature because you think they're not what they are, you start to realize, oh my God, there's truly something to this. And that's where many readings even start, or at least that's right in the beginning after a few things, because there's a lot there. And the conditioning is everywhere. It starts from before we're even born, because we're in the aura of our mother the whole time. And as soon as we get out, the conditioning does start with stuff like food and how it's going in. It might not be right according to your design. There's actually a way to eat, a way to rest, a way to see, a way to view, a way to actually have cognition, a way to physically have a consciousness. All these things are there to be described. It's incredible. And at the same time, you start seeing those things that you're supposed to be, and then you see that this not self takes me away. And it is the conditioning, because our parents didn't know. Oh, the little emotional girl, if I just took a moment and said, sweetie, I know you're sad, but don't worry, it makes you smarter. Now, if a mom could have intelligently fleshed that out over the couple of days, telling the little girl that, totally different life, totally different life. Just and that's such a small thing. And there's 100 of those things. All us open ego people, if our parents could have said, you're not here to prove anything, and just say you didn't feel like it and you didn't quit, you stopped. you know Two different things. I stopped, I didn't quit. And all these ego head trips that us open ego people have been under, and on and on and on. Love and direction, the fear of it, all of that, uncertainty, pressure, it's all there. And it's a conditioning, and it's who you're not. And when you see it, the conditioning becomes relatively okay. More than that, you start to push the people out of your life and bring the people in that fit what the conditioning is right for you. Because that's really what a good boyfriend girlfriend thing is. I love you, baby. Condition me. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
I
Yeah, no,
accept
that's a
your
really,
conditioning.
really cool point, right? Because it's like conditioning is not always bad. Right. Conditioning is
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
just part of the
It's
mechanics, that
great.
it's like we're here to be conditioned. But the thing is, it's to be conditioned correctly according to our strategy and authority, right? We're
We
here to
are.
condition the right one. You're here to condition, the love of your life that's like correct for you and perfect for you. Like, I'm here to condition my boyfriend. He's here to condition me because his sacral responds and he's into it. And I've been invited, and my will is like, hell yeah, I'm super into this because that's my authority. And it's perfect and it's beautiful. And so it's learning to tune into what is me, what is outside of me, and what is that correct outside of me that I'm supposed to allow inside of me.
Yeah. Yep. Well put, Moni. That was
Thanks.
poetic.
Thanks. It
Yep.
just came
We
out.
can move on after that one, baby. I don't want to follow that one up.
Perfect. So works perfectly into our next term, which is the not self, right? And this is not like, again, it's not like a boogeyman bad word or something. It's just a way of understanding the not self is what comes out. It's like our doppelganger, right? If you have your human design chart, all the stuff that's colored in, that's you. That's your consistent energy. And the not self, it's like the photo negative. That's what it is. The not self is the photo negative of you.
It very much is. And the thing is, it's even of a lesser, technically, it would even be of lesser stature than a photo negative, because at least the photo negative helps make the picture, anyways.
Damn,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
like, yeah, but it is like the photo negative, because it's the counter. It's what you're not. That's the big thing. It's the what you're not part. And the what you're not is all the stuff that isn't defined in your body graph. That's the starting point of what you're not. And everybody is not a ton of things. You know what I mean? Everybody's got tons of things that they're not, and a few things that they are, is the thing. And we get caught up in trying to be the things that we're actually not. The not self it treats the body like a slave. The not self originates from the mind that used to be in charge this whole time, when it was, for the longest time, what we thought was what we thought would be true. And the mind was so powerful because it measures things, and it sees how to do stuff, and it builds rockets, and it does all this stuff, right? It's incredible what this thing does. Not to mention, we think it's the soul thing talking. mostly we don't even think about it. It's like, oh, my mind, I came up with this to say. It's like, well, sure, you came up with that to say, but all of you came up with that to say, not just your mind. And then the mind says, I'm in charge, I'm the boss. No, you're not. There's an inner authority of some sort that is exactly not mine. Mind is the only thing that's precluded from being inner authority. That's a hard thing to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you start to realize, oh, mind is my outer authority. And it's just a separate nuance we'll totally get into, all down the road. But it's when you realize that, it becomes so powerful, because suddenly that's when mind starts to do the thing it loves to do. And it gets involved in the human design experiment. And now it's on board, not treating you as much as a slave and more as a witness, because it now is involved in the experiment with you. I realize I'm talking about this like, oh, mind, and then the rest of me, as if they're two totally separate things. And in one sense, they're very separate. They are separate. My mind and my body, we've said this all our lives, spirit, mind, body. We know there's a separation there. Human design shows you what that sort of is, without making you have to think that I'm like literally two separate things, walking around. No, you're you. Don't worry. We're not going to split you in half. It's just what you're not.
Yeah, the non-self is the signpost experienced when you're out of alignment. It's almost like the old cartoons with like the coyote and the roadrunner, and then it's just like wrong way, and they just like lifts up a little sign. It's like that. It's that thing to notice where you're like, oh, is this me or is this my doppelganger? Is this like when you look in a mirror, you're not looking at you. It's the flipped version of you that kind of looks like you, but is kind of weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that off. It's the anti-you. It's that flip that you can see. It's that the second my authority speaks, I could feel that in my body. And then there's like a second or two later within my head's like, but actually, Buddha, 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 Buddha. Right. It's that second later where you have that initial ontological bodily knowing that's correct. And it's that like, oh, but maybe you should go to that thing that's like, meh, maybe you have to do that. Right. It's that little like whiny, like, kind of voice a little bit. But it's that signpost for you to notice, hey, this isn't me. And it's that ability to have that signpost and then to pause and then like course correct, like, oh, hey, I started going down this weird path. That's not good for me. Let me compass true north.
Absolutely. And this whole treating your body like a slave and you like what you're not suddenly starts to go away, the resistance in your life. That's what really happens. It suddenly just starts to die down, because you start to see the things that you're not. And the whole signpost thing is beautiful. As soon as you start to see one thing, they all act like a signpost. I mean, the biggest, easiest signpost is I don't like it. And everyone's got something inside that's just like, nah, I don't want it. I'm not in the mood. Everyone's got a version of I'm just not in the mood. That's actually a signpost. And when it starts to show up, you can even just experiment with that without ever knowing your design. You can start to realize, oh, when I'm not in the mood, I don't have the energy to do the thing, even if I'm required to do it. And I don't do it as well. And I'm starting to treat my body like a slave. And I'm not going to live my best life if I have to do this day in and day out. Profound things can start to come in where you realize from that one little moment of I'm not in the mood, oh, I guess it is a chemistry that informs me. It's not my mind, but my mind will talk all about it to someone else, outer authority, but not inner authority, never inner.
Absolutely. That's perfect to go into our last little glossary point, which is deconditioning, right? We went over conditioning. What is deconditioning? So deconditioning is simply acknowledging conditioning, right? And realigning with your true self. It's again, you have that signpost of, hey, this is weird. This feels funny. And then it's acknowledging it feels weird. I don't like it. I feel like I'm swimming upstream. And then again, compass and realigning with your true north to actually exist as you.
It so is exactly. It works just like that. It turns into this point of deconditioning where you start to realize that over time, the stuff falls off and doesn't come back. Unlike in the past, when I thought I had worked on something and I'm never going to do that again, or this or that, whatever the thing is, and it seems to resurface in some way, or you hold on to it as a memory, or you let it torture you as a memory over time. All of these things, they drop off because we don't want them anyways, is the thing. And then the 4-year-old version of ourself realizes, yeah, I don't dig it. And that's the deconditioning process filled with road signs. And also it turns over the cells in your body. I mean, right? It's every 7 years we go through a whole cellular cycle. So the cells in our body are part of that conditioning we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So in the very first few months, you'll get through a whole ton, but you won't get through it all. Over time, it just gets stronger and stronger. By the time you reach a few years in, you really, everything's so much more powerful. And and the beautiful thing is you get to see it right away. That is
Mm-hmm.
conditioning. And I would like to decondition that back to my factory settings, what I originally was when I was freaking happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Put it this way, deconditioning gets you to the point where you can say, dude, I love me. I love the crap out of me. Dude, I love being me. This is great. Now, if you can say that to yourself with ease, yeah, you're pretty good. And if you sort of have a hard time with it or choke or gulp up or don't quite believe it, you know what I mean? Come in for some deconditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting. So you touched on it. So with human design, we talk about like the 7 years deconditioning journey, right? Because it's like in that time your body will like totally reset itself. And so you can look at it in that long way, but you can also like break it down into the 3.5. Like at 3.5 years, now you're 51%. That's like a big marker when I got to my 51%. But even you break it down into, 2.5 years, break it down to a year, right? Like you can simplify these things. At least that works for me when I like 7 years is a long time. Break it down into smaller increments. And I mean, parts of our body are always renewing ourselves, right? We're always like losing dead skin cells. Your hair is constantly like falling out and growing new. Our nervous system is only 9 months old. And your nervous system redoes itself every 9 months. Right. So
Right.
you're going through constantly, your bones are constantly destroying and rebuilding themselves, right? Every part of you is constantly in this, death and life cycle going through. So we're constantly deconditioning over this. So, don't get overwhelmed of like, oh, it's 7 years and you got to do this thing. It's like those 7 years are going to go by anyway. Break it down into smaller increments and you're really just allowing yourself to be you. It's just like after you like cut your hair, right? You like got out of a bad relationship and you like cut your hair and you're like, oh, I feel freer because it was holding on to something. And it's like
Mhm.
you get to go through this journey and experiment and let things go. Like you let yourself get in like an energetic haircut. You get to release these things and just again realign with your true self. And as time goes on, it does, because it is, in the regular world, it's hard to love who you are. And with human
Mm.
design, initially it's like, oh, I wish I was this. I wish I was this other type. I wish I had this center. And it's like,
Right,
that's
right.
it. That's the not self. When you're like, I wish
That's
I had a defined sacral, like that's the not
right,
self.
right.
And you go further down your journey and you start to really love all the aspects of your design. And it's really beautiful. And so, yeah, I invite all of you into this. If it speaks to you and if it's right and your authority is correct, like, play around, see what happens.
And and remember, none of this can be out of reach for you ever because it's genetic. You're already it. This is a genetic science, first and foremost, empirically noticed by you with the aid of those who see it already and can bring you to it. And then you can recognize for yourself, just like when you cut your finger and it stops bleeding because your genome has instructed the chemistry to coagulate so you don't bleed out. No different, or any other type of chemistry. Girls understand chemistry. You got that chemistry each month, that right. That's
Mhm.
chemistry. You have no choice, is what I'm getting at, and it shows up, and you can start to rely on it. Will always, always, always do that, and that becomes deconditioning all by itself. Just that knowledge that gives you that kind of confidence to recognize, yep, this is the thing.
Yeah. So
Mm.
that's our glossary. So that's our little intro to human design. Do you have any other final parting thoughts, or you feel good?
Not that I can think of. Let's go full screen.
Cool.
No more slides.
Yeah, this is the last one. So
Okay.
yeah, I feel
Not
really
that
good
I
about
can really think of. I mean, we could go on forever about what is human design. It's a relatively complex, yet at the same time simple enough when you're shown it empirical, genetic truth that is turned into a system that as we start to read it out of the body graph, that we see, oh yeah, these characteristics are there, and I do live them out, and so why not know them? You know?
Yeah.
So that's
Read your user's manual.
Yeah, read the dang user manual. That's what this thing is. Especially if you're a mom, read the manual for your kids because it's gonna
It's
start
gonna
in school and it's gonna start with their friends as parents and stuff. So you want them to be whole so that they can show their friends.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Danny, for
Hmm.
going through our human design introduction. So I'm going to pop off for a second and give you a moment to share your message with our audience. And I'll be back for part 2, where we'll be going over our introduction to circuitry.
Hmm. So the message is that I've been reading for a long time, and it's time for everyone to, like, if you have even an inkling or you wondered what it is, you should book your appointment. I have a sliding scale on how I charge. It's in my email donation tag. I don't know how to fit that all on Instagram, but I'll send it to you as soon as you ask. I'm Danny Guru HD, Danny Guru HD on Instagram. And I believe I even put my phone number on my Instagram page in case you want to text me. That'd be cool. And my email is dannyg@dannyguru.com. And as soon as our website is up, we'll have a calendar so you can do it in a much more professional, way. But for now, if you have an inkling to get read, bring it in because I will parse through every little aspect. The first session is about 2 hours if you got it, and we'll talk about everything. And then there's a follow-up if you want it, that goes with that. And I offer lots of different ways to do this. The point is that I make sure I get in and roll up my sleeves and we get it done. I pull up your body graph, start to show you how the whole thing works, and then I bring you into your own unique experience. And usually at the end of even just 15 or 20 minutes, you'll realize, oh my God, and it sounds like someone's a fortune teller or a magician, and it's not it at all. I'm just reading a page. I just happen to intuitively be a natural at it. And I've been doing it a long time. So I want to give that to you. Bring yourself in, contact me through either of those two ways. If you get my phone number off of Instagram, I think it's still there. Then you can even just text me. Just tell me who you are, and don't be shy on the description, and tell me what it is you think you're looking for. And I'll get about the business of pulling up your chart and telling you things that you've always been waiting to hear. And it's going to fix up every last thing. So over time, that's with your openness, by the way. I can't guarantee that. That's all up to you. But I know it has for me. And it has for everyone who wakes up. And nobody who wakes up goes back. You should see how our group works as we work behind the scenes. We're all volunteer. We're all awake to our nature. We're all still teaching each other, and we're all living it out. And everything works, and it doesn't matter how the other person is. There's almost nothing nitpicking at anyone anymore, like any other political office type environment. We could easily fall prey to that, but we don't, because we're awake to our nature and how it's not the other guy's fault that that's how they are. And it's definitely not a problem that you're designed how you are. So at the end of the day, come in and find out how you're designed so I can then pick up from there and show you the keynotes and how to access this beautiful strategy of yours and know how this authority is helping you come to truth and make decisions as yourself. And then watch how, even after a first reading within a week, you start to navigate differently through the decision making process as yourself. And the forces that are no good for you start to slowly move away, like the walking dead. They'll just start walking away. And the forces that are right for you just start to gradually move in. Some things will happen immediately. Mostly you just wait for it to settle itself out that way. And if that in any way sounds interesting to you, get in touch with me and let me do what my little expert thing is that I do for you and make it real. That's really all I want to say about what is it I'm offering people. I've been doing it a long time, so I'm going to offer that to you. You send me a message, I'll send you my donation criterion, and you'll like it, by the way. It's meant for everyone, and it makes sure everyone can get read, by the way. And then you decide or hit me back, and we 1, 2, 3 start. We record it. Make sure you have that recording after it's all over. I usually do it on the phone, but I can do it on Zoom. And once that's done, you get that recording, you re-listen to it at least once, and you are so underway. That you'll be calling back with more questions. Everyone needs this, and so it's time to wake up. So bring it in.
I love it. That was real sweet, Danny.
Mm.
All right, perfect. So next up, we have our circuitry in human design, our little introduction to circuitry. We're starting to get a little bit deeper than, strategy and authority and profile. And so let's keep going.
Mm. As it relates to, I was still stuck on what it was I was just saying. That's so funny. My right mind just sort of checked out for a second. It's so beautiful.
That's
And
cute.
notice Moana isn't mad. I mean, Moni is not mad at me for that.
No.
circuitry in the human design, I can't wait till we get into this because I keynote the circuitry so much. I lean on this for reading a design. You could show one gate, and go to a person and it's just like, I'm only telling you I got this one gate and this one line. And someone says, I'm not showing you my design. I just this. From that one gate, just through the circuitry, Shazam, you can tell that person so much. So I can't wait to get into this because circuitry is both blood, right, sifting through, and it's also like the pulling together. It is the tree of life in a way. The circuitry represents the tree of life aspect, touching all the chakras, bringing forth all the information, and it's gorgeous. We need it.
Perfect. So diving right on into our circuitry presentation, circuitry is how energy circulates through the channels in the body graph, right? This is what we're talking about. If you imagine the body graph is like an electrical circuit, right? There's all these little wires and it's trying to make it out to the throat, right? We have the pressure coming in from the head and the root. That's where stuff's coming in, and then it's going to go up all those little circuits, and it's like you can imagine like a little light bulb on the throat that wants to like light up and manifest and create into the world. Mm-hmm. And so by understanding circuitry, we can understand the flow of the life force. And it reveals how all life forms are differentiated, yet also designed to be connected, which is really cool.
Entirely, yeah. And so how this energy flows, as we're always said, like in the last segment, this is an imprinting. It's like a blueprint. And then we hone it down here to say it's also like a circuit board. So you see the whole thing, and then it's not that hard to realize, oh, there's circuitry within the circuit board. And the thing is, the keynotes that go with this and the meanings that go with this are really easy to describe to the person because they always know it. As soon as you start describing it, they go, and the head starts moving. But the keynotes are actually simple, but they're profound. It's a guarantee it's there. And so it's worth like you coming to understand what this is doing for you.
It's really beautiful. It's going to be really fun to dive into this. So again, here we have a glossary of terms that we're going to get into. So gates are the entry and exit points where energy flows to and from the centers. So like on our graphic below, the gates, it's all the numbers, right? It's the 50, it's the 44, the 57, the 48, the 27, the 34, all the little numbers, the individual numbers on a body graph, those are all gates. Then we have channels. So a channel is two gates connecting two centers. So on our graphic below, it's the 50 and the 27. So you have the gate 50 and gate 27 link up and they make the channel 5027. Then centers, they're hubs for transforming and transmuting the frequency. So below the centers, it's the spleen and the sacral. And then finally, we have the circuits, which are composed of channels. So that's when you have multiple channels connected and make a circuit. So that's like the order from smallest to biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I love this ordering. So a gate, we also sometimes call an activation. When you hear someone say this gate is activated, then that's saying what Moni just said about that. And the gates tell so much story. The gates are the I Ching. And then when they finally come together, the synthesis takes place and a life force gets created. The channel is a life force. And it's not like a Jedi lightsaber force, it's your life force. And once you come to know what it is, you see, oh my God, this moves me, this life force of mine. And it's that thing that's always on. That's why we call it a life force. It is always on. Unless you're the reflector, the life force shifts, but it's still there. There's always life force. The life force never stops. And then when you get to the centers, this transforming this frequency, it transforms literally what the life force is empowered by doing and its purpose. And that helps hone in what finally comes to the circuitry, which is named the circuitry. This channel would be in the tribal defense circuit. And that alone tells us so much stuff about what we can say about this channel. It's a channel designed to be caring. It's a channel of, what is this channel? Nurturing. This is the channel of nurturing and coming with values that guarantees the children stay alive, essentially. A deep, deep intuition that guarantees tribes survive. Now, when I start talking to someone with this gate in them, they have to care. They have values. It's constantly being looked at. It's a splenic thing happening quickly. And as I start keynoting, I'm doing it now, and I need to stop. But when I start doing that with you, you'll see, oh my God, this is important. Life force and the circuitry matters because this channel needs to support things. It's very supportive or not. That's its shtick.
Yeah, it's I like to really think of it, it's like as electrical wiring. There's electricity, right? So where you have electricity moving through your chart, like that's what we're looking at, is the spark of life that is coming through you, and how it connects with other people and how it makes its way out into the world. Like, I love human design. It's so beautiful.
It's so gorgeous.
All right. So moving on, first up, because we're doing just like an overview of the 4 main circuits that we're going to be looking at. We're going to go in more deeper in the coming weeks, and it's going to be really good, but this is going to be like your 101 overview. So first off, we have the channel of integration. It's kind of funny because the rest are circuits, and this is these integration channels. Just roll with it and don't think about it too much. For integration, the keynote is self-empowerment. And so this whole circuit is self-preservation. It is the backbone structure of the body graph. It almost, even like if you look at our graphic on the right in the green, it almost looks like a backbone. Like it's really like it's tucked away in there. It's like, it's very foundational and is the key defense mechanism of the form, ensuring the survival of all of the other 3 circuit groups that are coming after this. So this is like your core. And it's about the empowerment of the individual nature, expression, knowing, direction, identity, and the behavior of self. And ultimately, it's a self-absorbed drive to survive as a unique and undifferentiated individual.
We want to be unique and differentiated. It's so profound in everybody, and everybody wants to be their unique self. And that whole self-absorbed drive that is inside of these integration channels. By the way, they call it integration channels because it can't be a circuit, because when we get to the other circuitry, you'll see it, part of it occupies the exact same space. So it just didn't make sense to come up with 2 different circuitry again. Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, that's really cool. I just learned that right now. Thank you. So what Danny's saying is when we see the other ones, it's like it'll go from like the root to like the spleen up to like the throat, and it's like crossing through multiple centers. The integration, it's all connected within these 4. It's not crossing over a center to make it to another center. That's so cool. I was really wondering. I was like,
yeah, and they have to remain channels because it's hard to call it a circuit when there's already another circuit that occupies the exact same space.
Yeah,
the exact same space, and it moves all in the same directions and so forth. Yep.
That is so cool. I was making these slides and I was like, why is it called an integration channel and the other ones are circuits? And I couldn't really find it. So I was like, whatever, moving on. So I'm really glad
you did it, because the knee-jerk reaction is to call it circuitry still, because it's sort of a circuit. I mean, it's stuff and it acts like circuitry a little bit.
Well,
Integration,
it's like a category, yeah.
Yeah, it acts like circuitry in a way because it is life force. It's doing stuff for you. But the keynote for it, the self-empowerment, is very self-absorbed. There's a thing in human design, as soon as gate 10 is connected to gate 34, it is now looking at its own centering behavior, period. This, because of that, just that one fact, this stuff is centering in on its own behavior, and suddenly it becomes the power to survive in the now as ourself and know it and zig and zag, and sometimes it's as desperate as actual survival. Integration will keep you alive in those things that are profoundly like, oh my God, I could have been killed. And then all the rest of the time, this integration is always there. It looks a little self-absorbed. If someone only has integration definition, you might wonder, it seems a little self-absorbed. You got to let them be.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Very cool.
And it is self-empowered. And we need that. Without it, dude, we need our own self-empowerment, right? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a basis. Like no one's gonna like take care of you beyond a certain point, like unless you're like an infant, like unless you're like a small child, like you need to learn to take care of yourself. Like you need to learn how to handle your own stuff. You need to first be able to survive on your own before you're going to get into individual expression and the tribal relationship and the collective circuitry that we're all going to get into. Like right. It's like step 1. Like right. Literally you got to step 1, like hierarchy of needs type of thing, is your integration has to be correct in the world or it's just chaos.
Right.
Perfect. Right. All right. You feel good about this one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So moving on, now we have the individual circuitry. And so individual circuitry is, the keynote is empowerment. So with the integration, it's self-empowerment, but with the individual, it's empowerment more broadly. So the individual circuitry is about mutation and empowerment, and it brings mutation to the tribe and the collective, and it's oriented in the present moment. Its focus is listening to the beat of its own drum. And there's a determination to follow your own direction, a drive for uniqueness, and being a living example that's inspiring and empowering to others, is like as yourself. And it awakens this latent potential in others. And its gift is recognizing mutative potential, and it has an intuitive sense of how to empower others.
Yeah, and this word mutative, just look at it as new. It's something cool, something new and unique, and very often it is mutative, meaning it will change other things, and the thing is, life doesn't like much change. You take a whole population of people and say, we're going to change it all up in your society, for instance. It's like, maybe not so much, but mutation comes along and now suddenly things get changed up. So it does a lot of work, this keynote of empowerment. The whole reason for the integration channels to self-empower the being is mainly in support of the empowered individual that wants to empower the other. All of your individual definition is deeply unique. It's deeply creative. It works in a pulse. It's so important to understand. It's there. It's not the creativity, the knowing, the whatever it is. If you got individual definition, that's why you're always like, I thought I knew, but now it's different. You know what I mean? Or I wish I wrote that down, because it's unique and mutative in the now. You can easily lose track of it. And at the same time, as soon as you're starting to realize this mutative stuff you got or something unique, as soon as you see it as unique, one of the first things that it requires the genome puts into our energy to really come up through something that now we express as an outer authority, and this is a mechanic, it's happening all the time, is I want to empower the other with it. And it becomes shared empowerment. And it's part of this whole new nine-centered form we hold on to as this individual, unique, human designed creature that we are, is its capacity to physically want to empower the other. This wasn't always in us. This was not always this way, hundreds and thousands of years ago. We have changed ourselves, and it's time to wake up to this. So let the stuff empower and deal with the fact that sometimes it annoys the tribe and the collective. You'll figure out that dance. Your strategy and authority will keep you aligned to you, and it does move to the beat of its own drum. And the second you give that up, you are now disempowered. So, no good.
Mm-hmm. Really good stuff there. I was also going to say, it's interesting looking on our graphic here, our body graphic here, with the individual circuitry, like it's like the center line of the being, right? It's the center of, if you look even like the root and the spleen and the solar plexus, it's like in that centery middle thing. And I don't know, there's just like this core unifying sense of like me in here and this core of my being, where it's like the integration had that this like backbone kind of thing, where it's just like, this is my main stuff. This is like, I got to survive. I got to have this all together right here, spinal in a way. And with the individual, it's just like, yeah, it's like the core of our being, from especially that center line you can see.
If the integration is like the spine and this backbone that allows it to stand upright, the rest of the individual circuitry is the rest of the skeleton by which all the flesh would hang. And a couple interesting things: the individual circuitry is the only circuitry that touches all 9 centers. No other circuitry does that. It makes it obvious that the second interesting thing is all the other circuitries exist to get our unique creative potential out into the world. They all serve what is the master keynote when you get into tone and color and things below the line, which we won't get into, which is sound. Sound is the individual business, period. And that's why when we go through certain things, you'll see that individual circuitry. This is the thing that the consciousness field wants. I don't know. I hope that doesn't sound too esoteric or whatever, but
it's the programming. It's in our wiring. And again, like seeing our body graph and seeing the mandala and like understanding just like a little bit, that my little human brain can understand a little blip of the intricacies of this, like it brings me closer to God. It brings me closer to a creator of something way bigger than us that really cares about us, to put something so beautiful together. Like whatever that is, like there's something above that. This is holding it all together and loves us deeply, deeply, to like create us, and has like a plan. Like there's an organization here. It's not chaos. It's not a big nothing. It's deeply organized and so profoundly beautiful.
Mutation and our uniqueness shows up in a flash. It actually fits the description of creation itself. When we look at the word creation, you know what I mean, and define that in all the ways it fits that description.
Mhm.
It is unique, and it's where we are a freak. It's where we become a genius. It's where we suddenly know. What do you mean? How do you know that? I didn't know that. Do you know it now? I think I know it now. It happened. And
Mhm.
you ask the person, where'd that come from? It got created. So everyone wonders if they're an aspect of the whole thing. Stuff is constantly getting created in us, and it's through this individual circuitry, first and foremost, that becomes empowered. And the thing about our creation now is we want to empower the other with it. Dude, let's do it this way. It's going to work out better. You may not be right, by the way, but that's what we want to do with it.
Mhm.
And we find out through trial and error, all that, what we're going to need to know. But
Yeah, it's that individual pulse of something that comes up, the new, the mutative stuff. Like I think of like artists and musicians, right? Like, like I just got this thing struck me, this idea, and I got to put it out into the world. And like you got to put it out there. And the tribe may or may not accept it. The collective may or may not accept it. And like that's the dance that we do with the circuitry. That individual, it's that artist that's bringing something new, that's putting out a new song, that is expressing in this way, that is creating something new and different and transformative.
last thing I can even think to say about it is that the individual circuitry is the only circuitry that carries, as it relates to the melancholy and the fears of the spleen and the ajna and the circuitry of the awareness centers, that carries both melancholy and an emotional wave. All three. It carries an emotional wave. It carries straight up melancholy. Melancholy is the individual process because it's unique and mutative, and it just shows up again like the pulse. It just shows up as a sudden din and a sadness. It's not the low of the emotional wave that makes you want to bawl your eyes out. It's just din and sadness, and you can't really not in the mood. And then it's got all of that stuff. So it brings us the moments of melancholy that we need, because without it, we don't grow. And it's just a fact.
Yeah, it's just wiring.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. You ready to dive into
Mm-hmm.
our next one?
Ma'am, yes,
So,
ma'am.
so next up we have tribal circuitry. And tribal, our keynote is support, right? This is family, this is community, this is like, well, your family, you got to do it. You got to take care of each other, right? So
Mm-hmm.
tribal circuitry connects us to life and each other through senses, bloodlines, and loyalty to the blood bargain. And the tribal heart is the communal heart. And this is about support. This is about having and being sensitive to people's needs, material requirements, and the need for God, for spirit in our life. Like it's just in our wiring. And it's about generating and preserving human life. And it's about the laws and the values of tribal relationships. And this is a strong communal structure that's founded on loyalty to hierarchy. And so at the tribe, it's like everyone, like you have a place in the tribe. If you're part of the tribe, you have a place in the tribe, but you better know your place. You know who the king is, you know who the queen is, and you know where you fit in that entire alignment. And if you respect that hierarchy and you help out when you got to help out, then they'll help you out when you need help. And that's what tribal circuitry is about.
And it's so worth keynoting the extra juice. The tribal circuitry is the circuitry that gets like multiple keynotes, sort of like the individual circuitry, I guess. But I mean, because it's sensitivity to support, and it's Gate 19's want to support, even though want is technically the name of the stream of awareness through the individual circuitry, but um, on the emotional side, but it still is doing, it wants to be, and it's a deep, and it's part of the smell sensors, it's part of the taste senses, it's part of those lower two tones in a way, because it's got to smell it, taste it, touch it. It's part of this affection. Tribal affection is like no other, because it means I'm accepted. This is the point in which we accept in or reject the other, and that's a great big deal. The tribe makes up all of that. The collective has nothing to do with any of that. It's all social. Tribe is social with itself, and you do have to fit in, and it makes endless room for the uniqueness of the individual as long as they fit in to their little part and don't disrupt things too much, because the tribe can kick you out. But its supportiveness and its design to support is like real palpable, and it is a little bit personal, and it's okay. It's to take it, because there's a practicality. When the tribe is working well, the children are fed, children are made on one side and fed and cared for on the other. And this is one of our biggest things, as well as the husbandry and the animals. The tribal sensitivity is what gave us shepherding, in the way in which we could touch them and they still stuck around. They didn't try to get away after a while. This is our connection into that spirit. This is the start of the a part of this mystical way that we all know we have that ends up right now, in the now, and it must be supportive. And the thing is, it's not supportive as soon as you can start to feel it, and the tribal sensitivity to that will speak out, and it will mostly give the other a chance to correct that, because that supportiveness means the tribe can't just kick you out the first time. They got to give you a chance to correct the error, so to speak, and several chances, because it's a big deal. So this is where we get glue of holding things together in this way. Throw a bunch of individuals in a room, and what's going to happen? We're going to go in a different direction and not even be mad about it. Maybe we'll realize, oh God, we're kind of screwed. We better come together a little bit, put a whole bunch of collective people in. They're going to bicker at each other. No, it's this way. No, it's this way. Let me share my way. Let me share my way. Get a bunch of tribe together. Be like, I realize there's a bunch of ideas, but we got to at least get this done. And everyone agrees because they support the decision, even if their collective way wants to bicker about a thing or their individual way wants nothing to do with it. This tribal glue pulls us in and makes us become the tribe, or it falls us apart if we're all not self and don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty. Yeah, loyalty is a big part of tribal stuff. It's the only place I can get real loyalty is tribal definition.
Well, you're connected, right? It's that connection through blood.
I got to touch you. I got to be able to touch you. And I got to be able to hug you and feed you. All tribal business.
Mm-hmm. I liked even when you pulled in describing the tribe, because it's like, if we look on the graphic, that's what the graphic looks like. It is this pulling in, it's holding it together. It's this glue. And it's this little self system in the center that then goes out the throat, and even understanding that, it's very interesting. And yeah, it has to do with bloodlines. It's this family and this family, and they come together and they make new people, and that they share blood, and now they share resources and they protect one another. And relating to the senses, it's hugging and exposing the neck. It's kissing on either cheek a couple times, and you get a smell. Are you part of my tribe? Or are you not part of my tribe? Sometimes you can get that sense about it. And yeah, touch, you're not touching the collective. Touch is, it's holding a child, it's hugging one another. It's all of those really deeply beautiful things.
And it doesn't mean that the other circuitry doesn't hug the child, the individual totally empowered to be like, I want that kid next to me, but it's unique and mutative. The tribe has its sustained constant, and the collective, same thing. It's like, let's share the baby for a minute, and it's cute, but it's collective. They might be onto something else. Or they might have a lot of opinions about what they should do with that baby, and the tribal people will be like, well, thank you very much. But
this is ongoing survival of a community.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Perfect. Good on this one?
Well, one other thing, it's worth pointing out that the tribal definition connects so deeply into the spleen on the left-hand side that it basically shares splenic energy with the creating of the purpose that comes up through 28 and demands that the integration circuitry pay a little more attention. Integration circuitry won't pay attention to the collective. It'll just hear it as nagging. It won't pay attention much to the individual. It'll be like, you're weird and that's not exactly me at this moment. But the tribe can make demands even on the integration, and reasonable ones. I mean, meaning they're allowed. You're allowed to do it. So
awesome.
Legitimate demands, and pull that integration into being a little more, well, I guess there's other things here too, even though I am self-empowered first. So
neat. Glue. Yep. Yeah, I really like that description. All right, so finally we have our collective circuitry. And so collective, the keynote is sharing. So this is sharing as a drive and a social obligation. It's the need to share opinions, experiences, value judgments, and the sharing is not personal. It's an inherent social orientation, and it's objective and impersonal. It's just going to share because it's got to share. And the need is for harmony and uniformity. And the focus is society and establishing the majority good for everybody, not for the individual, right? With the quote is, what is good for one is good for all. Yeah. And as an example, right, citizens of the same country, they share the same rules, they share the same currency, the same institutions, right? It's, we all got to get through this together. And this is this kind of big overlapping aspect. Yeah. And even like, when you look at the graphic on the side, it's the outside. It's literally the outside that's like holding it together,
Yep.
containing on the outside. And the collective is suspicious of the non-conforming and impetuous individual with their new and their mutations, and the kids with their crazy rock music, right?
Yep.
And then, but the collective,
Long hair.
yeah, like these new artsy kids, these hippie kids, whatever, the thing is, whatever's new, it's just like, what is this? What are we going to allow of this newness into the big collective? And what is like, hey, that's not great for everyone. And with the tribe, they'd never trusted the primitive loyalty and the bargaining of the tribe, right? The collective is the big outside institutions. And, you have the individual that's bringing in some new crazy mutative stuff. And the tribe they got their own little pockets.
They've
And those
got their
little pockets can
and their own
exist,
gods and their own ways
their
and their
own
own
cultures, everything,
customs
the
and
food
colors.
and the
Yeah.
smells.
And their own god. Most tribes have a form of their own, higher.
I mean, yeah, you have what is going to highest orient you as an individual and as like a culture and a tribe and a group. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the collective and the tribe really don't, they are quite different animals, and it just shows we need them on the planet because one's one and one's the other. The collective is moving us forward because it's constantly sharing. Every channel in the collective circuitry is inherently social. You get to the individual circuitry, only one channel is inherently social, 1222. The integration channels, themselves, technically none of them are actually social. And the tribe is social in certain ways, like 34 and the 34, excuse me, 3740, as well as potentially the 4426. However, right, and technically the 2145, but that's not so much social. That's more like controlling. It's a deal. It's a bargain. So it's not just open to the thing. It's social with conditions. You're going to do this. You're going to help me do this freaking thing, or we're not going to feed you, type thing. And tribe makes those deals. So yeah, they don't like each other. And the thing is, the collective needs to share so desperately that when you have collective definition, you'll find you can't shut up. It's the spot you can't stop. I mean, not always, but it's just prone to being that thing. It's like a hunger. And the reason collective definition is a really easy way to see why I call it life force, why it's called life force, because you'll see it's like a look at the collective definition. I'll be like, geez, John, you're itching to say the thing, aren't you? There's a little life force in you, making you, chemistry coming up, burning those calories, about making you to spit it out, holding your place. That's a lot of action going on, right? How many calculations does it take to move my hand? 2 million, right? That's a lot of action going on, life force, making that person want to share. And the sharing it's just profound. So when you get to the keynotes of the channels, you'll start to see why this sharing becomes logical and experiential. And we're not to take it personally. People share their stuff simply because they can. And go back to the 2-year-old, mommy, I pooped my panties. They want to share that they just, so as an adult self, you might still want to share that, but it's no good. The other doesn't want to hear it. That's the thing. So that's why the sharing is so profound, because it feels personal at times. It's judgmental. It can be even a little bit bitchy and sort of resentful at times because it's trying to share. It can be powerfully experiential, where it's like I got to experience this thing and I want to share this experience with you, or with others. And it doesn't matter who you are sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And to the tribe, that's personal. It's like, hey, it does matter who I am. And to the individual, it's wicked personal. It does matter who I am. Don't tell me I'm not who I am. So this circuitry, you can count on sharing being like, you saw how I just fleshed out the word sharing,
Mm-hmm.
so it'll show up that way in all these different myriads of ways. But we need it, because we do need a generalized set of rules for the whole thing.
Yeah.
We just don't need the collective's judgment on, for sure, well, everyone needs to get this one thing. No, a lot of tribes will come in and say, no, we don't. Not for my kids, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, not for my individual desires. Yeah.
no, and the individual says, not me, just no, because it's mutatively knows in the now. So yeah, it's obnoxiously sharing and gorgeously sharing all at the same time, and it needs to do that. And the trick is to know what tribal and what individual and then what collective definition do you have,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I feel like circuitry, it's like it's like a beautiful dance once you understand it. And it's like
Mhm.
the same thing with like your base human design. When you're looking at your design, when you start to understand like, oh, everything has its place. Like just in life, everything has its place. And if everything is in its place, things work better. And so you start first with your personal body graph, and then it moves out. Like as you understand that, now you understand another person's and this other person's, and now zooming out and understanding the level of circuitry. It's like the same thing. Each of the four circuits, they have their place. And when they're doing what they're doing correctly, it's like they all work. And it starts off with like the backbone of the integration circuit. And then the individual is, that skeleton. And the tribal is holding it all together. It's almost like the muscles holding everything together. And then like the collective is like the skin that's just like the outside. It's holding the mass
Absolutely.
of it together.
Yeah, I'm becoming the dermis in a way. Yeah, absolutely. And it's wicked important to read into things as it relates to reading for people. And it's really key to know when you're getting your own body graph read, why that circuitry will end up mattering. Not that on the first reading, I'm going to spend a lot of time describing all that. I'm going to just use the keynotes. And if you're an analyst looking into human design, or you've gone more than just a little bit in and now you're sort of in it, that becomes a profound way for you to understand deeper. If you've ever been confused of what's the gate mean, what's the line mean, as soon as you put it into a circuitry, that helps clarify what does it mean, along with other things. And that's the essence of layering these keynotes, so we can read like poetry, for the other when they call it in. It's good. I can't think of anything else to say about circuitry except it's important. We need to cover this, and it carries the streams of awareness with it, by the way.
Oh,
So
we're getting to all of them.
yep.
Yeah, that was really fun. Thank you for, doing our little circuitry game. And like,
Yeah, I think we did enough, right? When we get into the deeper parts of it, we're gonna do, yeah, good, good,
yeah,
good.
it's doing that like correct balance, because this is our intro to circuitry, right? This is your 101, just kind of going over the gates, channels, the basic idea of them, what is a circuit, and then explaining that overview of the four circuits. And then next week, we're going to start diving in deeper, and we're going to go specifically into the channels of the integration channel, and
Mhm.
then also the centering circuit we're going to go into next week. So that'll be really fun, and we'll get to going through. We're going to then we're going to take a 2-week break, and then we'll have our individual circuitry, and then onto our collective. And we have lots more fun things planned for you guys. So yeah, thank you, Danny.
Oh, I
And
can't wait. This is gonna be great. And thank you, Moni, and thank you everyone for watching.
yeah,
Follow us on this journey, right?
yeah, thank you everyone who's watching live and on the replays. Thank you to everyone for liking and subscribing. It really, really helps. We're still like a little baby channel, and we're still growing. So it really means a lot when you like, when you subscribe. Your comments make me so happy every time. And then I send them to the entire group chat,
Mhm.
and we all just like squeak and get really excited. So thank you for watching and enjoying and giving us positive feedback. We're still finding our footing, but I think we found like a really good rhythm, and we have some really exciting shows planned for this year.
Mhm.
I'm excited to
Digging into the
dive in.
meat and potatoes, baby, the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. And we will see you next week with our further deep dive into our circuitry series. And yeah, have a great day, and I'll see you guys later.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.